Hi there, my name is Richard, and I just wanted to make this video to give my personal experiences on my musical journey that has led me to play in the American primitive style on guitar and to study Dhrupad in the Bishnupur Gharana style on the Rudra Veena. And it's pretty wild to me because I've only been playing about 4 years, give or take a few months. I never expected myself to play an instrument really, let alone to play in front of people, which I do now. And then certainly never thought I would ever begin to study and play an ancient Indian instrument like the Rudra Veena here. But here I am, and I wanted to make this video hopefully to perhaps inspire anyone who is having a creative bent or wanting to maybe study or try out some of this music or these styles, and maybe just needs to hear something to take the plunge. My fellow student, Dr. Fox, has a wonderful series showing her progress on studying the Rudra Veena under our guru Madhuvanti. Her YouTube is Dhrupad Love and Cats. I'll put a link down in the bio. She's a wonderful person and a brilliant artist. Definitely give her a check out. But she inspired me to make this video, as if I hadn't seen hers, I wouldn't probably have this Veena here in front of me. So to start with, my first musical experiences happened when I was very young. My family was very religious, though I'm no longer practicing, but we spent a great deal of time in the church, and in the Southern Pentecostal churches there is a lot of music, a lot of gospel music, a lot of folk music and things like that, and going to tent revivals and camp meetings and things like that around South Florida, North Florida, and some other southern states. You really get to see and hear a lot of that. However, I will say at the time I was uninterested. Mainly these were just places I was forced to be, and just wanted to go outside and play. But it must have stuck with me. And eventually we moved to Kentucky for a few years, where I had gotten my first experience of bluegrass music, where I saw banjos and mandolins and flat picking and even a dobro player, which I thought was wonderful. But again, I had not much interest in music. I will say when I was very young, I did have a great fascination with Beethoven and Mozart a bit. I was very, very much in love with the pieces of Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata and Felice. They spoke to me greatly, and I wanted to play piano, but my family didn't have the resources, nor did I probably have the inclination to stick with it. So that never went through, and I continued to kind of go through school, and I was in band. I played the trumpet. I was always second to last chair. I was a terrible trumpet player. And then again, not much interest in music. I would listen to a bit here and there, but it wasn't until after I graduated high school where I started collecting records, and I discovered the Velvet Underground and Lou Reed, which became very important to me. I started collecting a lot of Lou Reed albums and the Velvet Underground, as it introduced me to experimental sounds, drone sounds, and folk music, and this sort of way of writing and thinking. And it was aggressive, and it was different, it was confrontational, and at the time it spoke to me very highly. I got a lot out of it. And it got me listening to bands like the Fugs, or Bob Dylan, Simon and Garfunkel even, and the Kinks, and the Beatles, and all these other wonderful 60s bands, Jefferson Airplane, Spoonful of Loving, Canned Heat. And eventually, through all that and more and more research and looking into this, I eventually found a video where the artist Kurt Vile was going through some records and recommended this John Fahey album, Days Have Gone By, which when I listened to it based on his recommendation of what he said could be taken from what inspiration could be gotten from this album, just how dense it was. And if he wasn't right, I swear, like it, I'd never heard anything like it. It hit me so hard. He didn't play in any sort of standard tuning. It seemed like it. He was basing his music off some blues that I'd heard, but also it sounded like Eastern rags, but also like classical music. I hadn't heard anything like that. He wasn't singing. You know, impressions of Suzanne, Portland Cement Factory, even the ragas called Pat. Those are just, they blew my mind at the time, and I knew at that point I had to have a guitar. I saw a couple live videos of him playing the Red Pony and Poor Boy Long Way from Home from the 60s and one from the 80s, and I just, I thought I wanted to do that. I wanted to play a guitar. I wanted to feel that as he would play with his right hand finger picking and then his left hand jumping back and forth up and down. It drove me wild. So I asked my neighbor, because I knew he had some instruments, if he would show me a few things, and he asked me if I had a guitar. I said no. He said come over the next day, and I went over the next day, and there was a Yamaha, an old Yamaha that he had, and he gave it to me. He said, "That's for you. Practice on it, play on it." He asked me what song I wanted to learn to play. We tried to learn Lou Reed's "Walk on the Wild Side," which I love that song, but I learned very quickly, maybe not even 3 minutes in, that was not the music I wanted to play. That was not the style, the type. It didn't match with what I wanted. But he did show me two things. He took a Bic lighter and ran it down the strings and showed me my first slide. And I didn't have any context. I didn't know about Indian slide music. I didn't know about Hawaiian slide guitar. I didn't know about bottleneck. I mean, I'd heard a little bit of Sunhouse maybe, but I didn't know about it. But I heard that, and that threw me through a loop. But not only that, he let me play his 12-string. He had a 12-string guitar, and I remember the feeling of strumming that and the overall vibrations and the feelings that came to me when I strummed that 12-string. I just became enamored with the sound. I just love the sounds of these strings vibrating on wood. It sounds wild, and particular on the 12-string. So I kept with that. I played that guitar for a while, eventually went out of tune. I didn't have a tuner, so I would try to tune it by ear, trying to just get the guitar to sound sweet, get it to sound good, or maybe get it to sound sad, just by tuning one or two strings, and sometimes it would get there. I lost a lot of those recordings on my phone, but I do recall having a lot of fun. Eventually, I was able to buy my first guitar, and the first guitar I bought was this Hawaiian slide guitar. This is just kind of a cheap Weisenborn copy, although they weren't technically designed by Herman Weisenborn originally, but that's a little bit of a thicker topic. But I've got that. I played it for a long time. I beat it on my front porch. I still have my first steel slide. You can see up to 3 layers of metal where I just rubbed through it all. And then after that slide, I managed to get a 6-string. I played that for a short time before I was able to finally get my own 12-string. And I finally got my first 12-string, and that's where I found that was the sound in the guitar that I was truly looking for. Of course, I still love the slide, and I play the steel guitar when I can on my console steel, but the 12-string just has such a sound. Leo Kottke says once you get addicted to it, it's hard to shake. And so I became enamored with it. I started playing very heavily influenced again by John Fahey, Leo Kottke, especially Robbie Basho, Peter Walker, and then a lot of modern players as well. Rob Noyce, James Blackshaw, Joseph Allred, Matthew J. Rowland, of course, Jack Rose. And going from Jack Rose, as I was doing this research and getting more into this music, I actually, not only did I start playing at open mics, I started getting to play shows. I would get mixed reviews. Some people would like it, some people wouldn't. That's a part of the learning of being an artist and putting your music and work out there. But it was when I read an interview with Jack Rose that he mentioned when he was working on his song Yaman Blues, he would listen to Usted Ziem Dagger's Rag Yaman played on Rudra Veena every morning. And I became so interested in that, so I searched out the recording. I listened to it, and myself became enamored. I'd never heard sounds like that. It was it's like a 30 to 45 minute recording, I think, depending on which one you listen to, and it it just takes you places. It's the what I now know is called an alap is so long and slow, and then the Georgiala, the heavy part, is so quick and right at the end, and it gives you that trance and then the lift. It's absolutely amazing. I eventually got this album, which I played to heck. Ragabogi, I highly recommend it. It's very good. But I would listen to that, and I became enamored with this instrument. And I knew I had come to that I wanted to play a traditional instrument, having been inspired by Peter Walker and Robbie Basho, both having studied in California at the Usted Ali Akbar College of Music at the time. And so I wanted to play a traditional instrument. I was thinking sitar. I was looking at sitars. People play sitars. There are sitar teachers around. But I kept thinking about the veena, and I kept watching these videos and listening to these recordings, and I just couldn't get out of my mind. I would still look at the sarod. I saw Subahar, didn't know what it was really. Even I saw Saraswati Veena, and I thought about that, but I just could not get the Rudra Veena out of my mind, particularly the traditional Rudra Veena that is played on the shoulders. This style of Veena is played on the lap, but traditional Veena is played on the shoulder. And I became particularly enamored watching Usted Asald Ali Khan and Jodi Hegre. They were just magnificent, but the sounds that they all made, they were varied and different, and I had no context for any of it or any understanding. I would see these words like Gharana or Shruti, and I just wouldn't know what they mean. But I started contacting instrument makers and almost actually purchased a traditional Rudra Veena that might not have worked for me with my lack of context and understanding of the situation. And I'll speak more to that maybe later on, but eventually, after seeing Dr. Fox's videos on YouTube where she described being a Westerner, learning this music and studying on the Rudra Veena, she had recommended that I contact her guru, Madhuvanti Paul, who I contacted, and eventually we started taking lessons. And for 10 months, while my Veena was being made along with several other students and Veena for Madhuvanti, we took vocal lessons, which was very difficult. I don't like singing, and that was something to learn, but it helps with ear training. That's a much thicker topic as well. And I will say, having no training, no musical training aside from just what I've taught myself, listened and seen, it has helped immensely, actually, particularly with the Veena and trying to hear the notes, hear sa re ga ma pa de ne sa. But it's been difficult. It's been a bit of a slow road. I'm not the quickest learner, and there's a bit of a steep learning curve with it. But thankfully, I have a very understanding guru, Madhuvanti, who has faced a lot herself, which, again, these are all becoming thicker and thicker topics, which hopefully will be gotten to eventually. But at the moment, where I am now I've been taking these lessons for a little over 2 years. I've had my Veena for a little over a year, and I've been working on it. Hopefully, I'll be able to make something beautiful with it, and we'll see. So far, things are going pretty well, I feel, and I'm working on a lot of projects. I'm working on hopefully maybe making a label to hopefully propagate Indian classical music as much as possible in the vein of George Winston's label, Dancing Cat Records, and John Fahey's Take Oma, as well as working with Madhuvanti and other Indian classical musicians. She actually will have a album coming out, The Holy Mother, on Sublime Frequencies label. Definitely check that out. I'm very proud to have had a part in that, as well as working towards hopefully getting to India to be able to study this instrument with my guru, which has now become one of my main goals. So that's where I'm at, and I just want to make this video so hopefully if anyone out there is curious about this music, or other types of music, or have a creative bent that they feel they want to follow, go for it and see what happens. You never know. You never know. 5 years ago, I never thought I would be playing an instrument. 4 years ago, I never thought I'd play in front of someone. 3 years ago, I never thought I would be playing an ancient Indian instrument and working as hard as I can to get to India. But here I am. I hope to make more videos explaining the Veena and the culture surrounding it and my experiences learning the Veena. But for right now, I think that should be enough, and I hope everyone takes it easy, has a good one, and aloha.